I came home one Thursday and found my mother-in-law standing in my bedroom, not in my kitchen, not at the front door. In my bedroom, she was holding one of my bras in one hand and a folder from my nightstand in the other, like she was inspecting a hotel room she planned to complain about. And when she saw me, she didn't even look embarrassed. She just said, calm as anything. I was checking how organised you keep things. That was the moment I found out my husband had given his parents a spare key to our home without telling me. And what I did next changed everything. If you think that's already insane, stay with me. Because it got so much worse before it got better. When Daniel and I moved in together, I honestly thought I was one of the lucky ones. He was patient, steady, soft-spoken. The kind of man who never raised his voice, never forgot birthdays, always texted when he got somewhere safe. After a string of chaotic relationships, he felt like peace. That's what sold me. And his parents. At first, they looked like the classic close family. Sunday dinners, group chats. His mother calling him my sweet boy, even though he was 32. His father acting quiet but always watching. I told myself it was harmless. Annoying sometimes, yes, but harmless. Looking back, that's the thing about red flags. When you're in love, they just look like decorations. His mother, Linda, had a habit of saying strange things with a smile. A wife should never come between a son and his mother, or I know Daniel better than anyone ever will. People would laugh. Daniel would roll his eyes and say, Mom, stop. But he never really stopped her. That was his talent. He made disrespect sound small. If I said his mother was overstepping, he'd kiss my forehead and tell me, she means well. If I said his father's questions about my salary were weird, he'd shrug and say, that's just how he is. If Linda criticised how I cooked, cleaned, folded towels, decorated, spoke, sat, hosted, breathed, Daniel would always act like I was being a little too sensitive. Have you ever noticed how dangerous too sensitive becomes when it's used to train you out of your own instincts? Because that's what happened to me. I adjusted. I softened. I swallowed things I should spit out immediately. When we signed the lease on our new place, I remember Linda running her hand over the kitchen counters and saying, you should give us a spare key. Emergencies happen. I laughed because I thought she was joking. She wasn't. I'm serious, she said. Family should always have access. What if I need to check in? I looked at Daniel, expecting him to shut it down. Instead, he gave me that same calm, conflict-avoiding smile and said, we'll talk about it. That should have been my answer right there. Because we'll talk about it was Daniel's favourite way of saying, I'm going to do what keeps everyone comfortable except you. A few days later, Linda brought it up again at dinner. This time, she didn't even pretend it was about emergencies. She said, I need to know I can come in whenever I want. A mother shouldn't need permission. Need. Not hope. Not ask need. I told her, as politely as I could, that I wasn't comfortable with that I valued privacy. That if there was an actual emergency, we lived 15 minutes away and could always help. The room went cold. His father stared at his plate. Linda smiled that paper-thin smile women use when they've decided they hate you but still want to look holy. And Daniel squeezed my knee under the table, like I was the one making dinner awkward. On the drive home, he said, you could handle that better. I actually laughed. Handled what? Saying no to your mother wanting free access to our home? She's family. So am I. He didn't answer, sir. That silence told me more about my marriage than any argument ever could. Still, I wanted to believe this was just a boundaries issue. A normal married couple adjustment. I didn't know I was living inside a system already built around excluding me. A week later, I found out that Thursday I got off work early because a client cancelled. I even picked up Daniel's favourite takeout on the way home. I remember balancing the bag on one arm, digging in my purse for my keys, and noticing the front door was already unlocked. My stomach dropped. I went inside quietly. At first, I heard cabinet doors opening and closing. Then I heard Linda's voice from the hallway. Honestly, she doesn't even store things properly. I froze. His father was in our living room, flipping through a stack of mail. Linda was in my bedroom, and Daniel had never warned me because Daniel had never planned to tell me. When Linda came out and saw me, she didn't apologise. She didn't even flinch. She lifted her chin and said, "Daniel gave us a key. We're just making sure everything is being run properly." Being run properly. Like I was an incompetent babysitter in my own home. I looked at his father. He held up one of my envelopes and said, "You really shouldn't leave financial documents lying around." I still remember how still I went, that kind of stillness that feels colder than anger, colder than tears. I didn't scream, I didn't throw them out, I didn't give them the scene they were clearly prepared for. I just said, "Please leave." Linda blinked, like she was offended by my tone in the house she had just broken into with permission that wasn't hers to give. "We're family," she said, and I answered, "No, family knocks." That line still lives in my head. They left stiffly, muttering about disrespect. I stood there, alone in my hallway, hearing the door click shut, and it felt like the sound of something inside me closing for good. Here's the part that really messed me up. I didn't cry right away. I walked room to room first. I checked drawers, my closet, the bathroom cabinet, my desk. Our filing box, things weren't stolen. That almost would have been simpler. They had just looked. Touched, examined, judged. You know how violating it is when someone leaves your home exactly as they found it, but you can still feel their fingerprints on your life. That night, Daniel came home smiling. He saw my face and stopped. "What happened?" I asked him one question. "Did you give your parents a key?" He hesitated. That hesitation was confession enough. Then he actually said, "I was going to tell you." And I think that's one of the cruelest lies people tell. Not the flashy kind, the quiet kind. The kind that says, you weren't worth honesty in real time, but maybe you'd accept it later. I asked him if he knew they'd been in our house. He rubbed the back of his neck and said Mom mentioned she might stop by. Might stop by, like she was borrowing sugar. When I asked why his father was reading our mail and why his mother was going through my bedroom, Daniel did what weak men do when they're cornered by truth. He minimised. They were probably just worried. You know how Mom is. You're taking this personally. Taking it personally, I wanted to ask him how else a woman is supposed to take it when strangers rifle through her underwear drawer with her husband's blessing. Instead, I got very quiet, and that scared him more than if I'd shouted, because loud anger is messy. Calm anger is organised. That night, while he slept, I went through our entire marriage with brand new eyes. Every time his mother knew something I hadn't told her, every time Daniel dismissed my discomfort, every time I caught him deleting a text thread and he said it was just family stuff. Every time Linda showed up with opinions about decisions we had supposedly made alone, it all rearranged itself in my mind. The truth wasn't that my in-laws were invasive. The truth was that my husband never believed our home was ours. He believed it was an extension of theirs, and I was just the woman temporarily living in it. That realization did something strange to me. It didn't make me hysterical, it made me methodical. For the next 4 days, I said almost nothing. I apologized for overreacting. I told Daniel I just needed time. I smiled at Linda's fake sweet texts. I even went to Sunday dinner and let her kiss my cheek while I imagined sanitizing my skin afterward. Meanwhile, I was making calls. I spoke to our landlord and explained that an unauthorized third party had been entering the property. Since both Daniel and I were on the lease, I couldn't legally lock him out, but I could absolutely request a rekey for security due to undisclosed duplicate keys floating around. The landlord agreed immediately. I opened a new bank account and moved my direct deposit. I photographed every shared financial document. I backed up texts. I installed indoor cameras in the living room, hallway, and bedroom entrance. Not because I wanted revenge yet. because I wanted proof. Then I did the one thing that made the rest possible. I told Daniel I had a work training 2 towns over and would be gone Saturday from noon until late. That was a lie. Saturday morning, the locksmith came at 10. By 11, every lock had been changed. And just so we're clear, I did not tell Daniel. Some of you already know where this is going, don't you? At 12:47 p.m, my phone buzzed, front door motion detected. I was in my friend Marissa's car across the street, watching the feed on my phone with my pulse beating in my throat. Linda walked up first, purse on her shoulder. That smug little bob she did when she thought she was in charge, his father behind her. And 2 seconds later, Daniel. That was the part that still somehow hurt the most. He wasn't at work. He wasn't surprised. He had brought them. Linda tried her key. Nothing. Tried again. Nothing. Then Daniel stepped forward and tried his. Nothing. I actually laughed quietly. The kind of laugh that only comes out when pain and disbelief have been simmering too long. Then, because some people are so entitled they mistake boundaries for technical difficulties, Linda knocked once and then tried the handle again, like the house might change its mind, like the house might started, because I had already called the non-emergency police line 30 minutes earlier. I told them I had video evidence of repeated unlawful entry by relatives using unauthorized keys, and that they would likely attempt access again that afternoon. They said if someone tried to force entry, officers nearby would respond, and Daniel, my brilliant peace-loving husband, started arguing with the lock, not pounding, not kicking, just that frantic, angry jiggling people do when control slips through their fingers and they can't accept it. Linda pulled out her phone and called me. I answered on speaker from the car. Her voice came out sharp and offended. Why aren't the keys working? I said, because I changed the locks. There was silence. Then, Daniel, you changed the locks without telling me? I looked at Marissa and almost smiled. Interesting question. Linda snapped, open this door right now. And I said the line I had been saving all week. If you need permission now, you never had the right to enter before. Tell me that wouldn't make you sit up if you heard it in a video. She started shouting then. About disrespect, about family, about how I was humiliating them. As if humiliation had not started. Just when she stood in my bedroom holding my clothes. Then his father, who barely ever spoke, muttered, "This is her turning him against us." That's when I understood something important. These people did not think they had crossed a boundary. They thought I had created one. The police pulled up 2 minutes later. And I swear to you, if you ever want to see a manipulative family unravel in real time, let authority arrive when they're performing innocence. Linda's whole face changed. Daniel stepped back. His father suddenly became deeply interested in the bushes. The officers spoke to them first, then to me when I crossed the street with my folder of screenshots, camera footage, locksmith receipt, and landlord email. Calm beats chaos every time. One officer asked Daniel if he had given keys to people not on the lease without both tenants' consent. He said, "They're my parents." The officer said, "That's not what I asked." I almost wanted to frame that sentence, "No one got arrested." I didn't want that. What I wanted was documentation. A report. A line in the sand that couldn't be smoothed over later with misunderstanding and family drama. I got exactly that. Linda cried. Of course she cried. Women like her always discover tears when consequences show up. Daniel kept trying to pull me aside to talk, privately. I said no because privacy meant one thing to him, a room with no witnesses. By that night, I had packed a suitcase and gone to Marissa's. By Monday, I had met with a lawyer. And here's the twist Daniel never saw coming. The house wasn't the only thing I had secured. I had already separated my income, documented his breach of trust, and preserved evidence of his parents accessing confidential financial mail. The divorce itself wasn't dramatic. It was worse for him than drama. It was precise. He called me heartless. He called me vindictive. He called me unbelievable. And maybe my favourite part of the whole thing was realising that people only call you cruel when they can no longer use your kindness against you. He begged at one point. Said he was stuck in the middle. No men like Daniel are never in the middle. They are standing exactly where they want to stand and hoping women will be soft enough to call it confusion. The aftermath wasn't glamorous. I won't lie to you. I grieved. Not just him, the version of my life I thought I was building, the safety I thought I had, the intimacy I thought was real. There's a special kind of heartbreak that comes from realizing you were loyal inside a relationship that was never truly built around protecting you. That messes with your head. For months, ordinary things triggered me. A key, turning in a lock, a cabinet left open, someone saying they mean well, but peace came back slowly. And the first time I sat alone in my new apartment, heard a knock and realised no one could come in unless I allowed it, I cried harder than I had when my marriage ended, because that was the real loss, not the man, the illusion. I used to think love meant being accepted by someone's family. Now I know love means being defended from them when necessary. I used to think keeping the peace made me mature. Now I know peace without boundaries is just quiet control, and I used to think revenge had to be loud to count. It doesn't. Sometimes revenge is a changed lock, a paper trail, a calm voice, a door that never opens for them again. So no, I didn't scream. I didn't break dishes. I didn't post a long rant online. I just made sure the next time they tried to enter my life without permission, the only thing waiting for them was a locked door and the truth. And honestly, that was enough.